Welcome to the Fantasy Fling DFS channel. Take a break from the season-long commitment and join us for all things daily fantasy sports, DraftKings, daily drafts, the newest and hottest DFS deals, and all the best ball and DFS content you can handle. All right, let's dive headfirst into this episode.
Welcome in. We are looking at Week 17 Thursday Night Football Showdown. And, speaking of best ball, it's almost playoffs best ball, and I'm excited to jump into that. We're going to be covering on this channel, so stay tuned. I want to do some best ball drafts for the playoffs.
Hopefully win some more money. So even though the season's ending, still got a lot of opportunities to go. So I'm looking forward to that too. It's a little bit different strategy than just regular best ball. It's, kind of survive in advance, but you also can't use up all your marbles in week one. So it just got a little bit more strategy, and I'm looking forward to it as well.
No doubt about it. There's a couple different ways you can attack it. You can obviously start, if you're really good at predicting who the teams are going to be, all the playoff scenarios, you look at all the probabilities, you can start drafting now. And, that kind of sets yourself up to really have an edge. If you don't want to throw away a bunch of lineups for, teams that might not be in the playoffs, you can wait till that's finalized. So it's going to be fun. I'm looking to get into it this year. So, but Jameson, we got a lot of news. We got a lot to talk about.
Yes, we do. Before we even get into Showdown, so I guess we'll kick it off real quick with some, more positive stuff. Go talk about our DFS lineups over the weekend. We both had a little bit of a sweat going. Personally, for me, I played the Joe Flacco double on Sunday.
Nice.
Felt really good, and played the double to get into the Cowboys Dolphins game in the afternoon. I played CeeDee Lamb. He had like the 80-yard touchdown to kind of start the game, and I was like, holy shit, I'm going to get there. And didn't get there, unfortunately. I got close, won some money. I didn't play Breece Hall like the other people did. I played him in another lineup. If I would have played Breece Hall over, I forgot who I played. Definitely I would have got there. And I know you had a little bit of a sweat too until Big Cock Brock ruined it for you.
Dude, this is the second time I was telling some people, I was tilting on Twitter a little bit. It's the second time this year where I've had had some contrarian plays that like hit early, and we go into the late game or the afternoon game or whatever it was, and I got nothing but studs left. And I'm like, so much PMR, and I'm like, top 100, like prime position to take down a tournament. And then I just get let down. So I ended up finishing 10th in this tournament, and Brock Purdy was the one snowflake, got me 6 points. I did the math. Everyone above me had Jalen Hurts. And so like, it was me. If Brock Purdy scores like 20 points, I win the tournament. That, not too much to ask with all the weapons that he has. But no, he threw 4 touchdowns or 4 interceptions, and I don't know. I was just tilted.
Yeah, I played Achane, and I played him and CeeDee Lamb. So Achane let me down big time. And I played like Seahawks defense, and I thought I can get away with it. They didn't do as good as I thought. But like I said, I made a little bit of money. But when you get Amari Cooper at 7% and Joe Flacco at 5% in a pretty decently large tournament, and they both go off, that's I don't know. It was fun while it lasted. But moving forward, I do want to let you have a therapy session here for a moment and discuss the state of the Broncos, because I know you're hurting right now, and I just want to give you the floor to vent a little bit.
I really appreciate that, because I haven't been to therapy in a while, but today was the day I was like, man, if I could just talk to a therapist. I can't even talk to my dad about this because we don't see eye to eye, and we love talking football. But when it comes to the Broncos and this topic, we don't see eye to eye on Russell Wilson. And for me, it's a compounding of mistakes, like a team that's like chasing their losses. It literally started when they drafted Brock Osweiler to be Peyton Manning's successor. And it actually looked like it was working really well, because he came in during the Super Bowl run and actually kept the ship. He righted the ship, and he won key games that the Broncos were able to get the #1 seed. And what they didn't do, though, is they did not re-up Brock Osweiler. And what happened was they ended up losing him to the Houston Texans. Not a big problem that you lost Brock Osweiler because he didn't end up being a franchise quarterback. But what it did do is it started this domino effect with the Broncos of the quarterback situation. So they basically went into the draft. They ended up having to they traded for like Mark Sanchez, like a 7th round pick or whatever. They went into the draft desperate to get a quarterback. So they reached on Paxton Lynch. Okay. This started just like a domino effect because he ended up being a huge bust. Trevor Siemian, the guy they took like in the 6th or 7th round, ended up beating out Paxton Lynch. So they had a Super Bowl winning defense, and they just couldn't get the quarterback position right because they had no plan. So Lynch is a bust. Then they're sitting there with the number 2 pick. And because they were gun shy from Paxton Lynch, they passed on Josh Allen. Okay. They took Bradley Chubb instead of Josh Allen. And then to make matters worse, they are sitting there with the number 2 pick again. At one point, they had the number 2 pick before the draft of Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, who you know because you're a Chargers fan, Justin Herbert. And the Broncos had took Drew Lock as a project, and everyone in Denver was like, we got to see what we got in Drew Lock. We got to see what we got in Drew Lock. I'm like, no, you don't. He's a project. You can draft another quarterback, and if you have 2 quarterbacks, that's a good problem to have. What happened? They played Drew Lock. He played Denver out of the number 2 pick, and then they decided they needed to go get a wide receiver for Drew Lock. Well, Drew Lock ended up not being very good either. So this was after they went through Case Keenum, Paxton Lynch, Joe Flacco, Teddy Bridgewater, you name it. Every journeyman quarterback you could possibly think of. They ended up with Drew Lock, and then they realized that Drew Lock can't play. And then what do? They're like, okay, so we're going to go out and get Russell Wilson. And everyone loved the trade when it went down. Everyone loved it. And I still think it was a good trade, but how they messed it up was George Payton went and gave Russell Wilson this massive contract before he ever played it down in Denver. And by the way, the whole plan, they got Nathaniel Hackett because the whole plan was to get Aaron Rodgers, right? And then they were like, oh, well, Russell Wilson was our guy the whole time. And we're like, no, he wasn't. He decided to stay in Green Bay and he pivoted to Russell Wilson, which is fine, but he wasn't a good fit for Nathaniel Hackett. Then you give him a massive contract. You bring in Sean Payton, and it's just, he never liked him. And, Russell Wilson finally, I think he played good enough. We were talking about it a little beforehand. I think he played good enough this year that you should continue to build the team because the Broncos have a lot of problems. And this is something that Broncos fans do. They always blame the quarterback. Jerry Jeudy sucks. I can't count how many drops he's had, and he can't catch a contested catch to save his life. And this is a dude that was drafted like top 10, top 15 in the NFL draft. Just ridiculous. You have one wide receiver, Cortland Sutton. Jeudy sucks. You don't have a tight end. You don't have a run game. Javonte Williams over the past 2 games, he's been terrible this year, and he's coming off an injury, so we'll give him grace. But past 2 games, he's averaged like 2 yards a carry. I mean, it's been pitiful. So bad. And to me, it's like, dude, continue to build the offensive line, continue to add playmakers. Russell Wilson will be better. He's not going to be, the long-term. You're probably not going to win a Super Bowl with him at this point in his career. But at some point, you can now go get a rookie quarterback, right? It's like what the Chiefs did with Patrick Mahomes. They had Alex Smith. They were a good team. They were a playoff team. And they're like, no, that's our guy. We're going to go get that guy. And that guy's going to get us over the hump. That's an organization that has a plan and doesn't change it every year. So, rant over. I'm pissed off with the Broncos. Pissed off. And because of the report, I don't know if you saw it, but they went to Wilson and they said, you need to change your injury guarantees in the contract, or we are going to bench you the rest of the season. And when I first saw that report, I was like, there's no way that's true. And then I go on Twitter and fucking Wilson is liking all those tweets. So that tells me it's actually true. Like, just unbelievable level of dysfunction.
It's been pretty bad. And obviously this is all money thing just for all the guarantees. Like you said to begin with, how bad the contract's been. I don't think Russell Wilson has been like terrible. Obviously, I
No.
don't think you can necessarily build around him as like a Super Bowl contender at this rate, but you're kind of stuck either way, whether you pay him or not. I mean, they got dead cap hits the next 2 years that are substantial just because of how bad the contract is. So it's like Broncos are in a lose-lose. You already know this year is a wash, even though they're still technically in the playoff race. Next year, you definitely know is a wash. And then you kind of get in this, like, we got some quarterbacks coming out, but do the Broncos, kind of overpay for a subpar quarterback? Because, Caleb Williams and Drake May will be off the board, and we'll see where the Broncos are in the draft. But, like, are you going to pay up for Bo Nix or, one of these other guys? And
Yeah.
kind of like they did with Drew Lock. Drew Lock was
Yeah.
kind of a project, and they went and way overpaid because they needed him, and, the cycle starts over.
Exactly. And that's my thing. Like if they didn't have that win streak and they were in a position to draft Caleb Williams or Drake May, I'm all about it. I think the only way out of any bad situation in the NFL at quarterback is through the draft. As a young stud, the CJ Strouds, the Patrick Mahomes, these guys that come in and change a franchise. So, yeah, if you're in a position to draft those guys, awesome. But as we saw last year with Carolina, you can't trade the farm and go out and get a Bryce Young and have nothing around him. He's actually, I think he looked pretty good the past couple of games in moments. He's flashed, but he literally has nothing. So, it's what bad teams do. I'll tell you this, Jarrett Stidham, he's not a starter. He if he comes in and plays good for a couple games, it's false hope. He'll come out next year and it's going to be a rebuilding year. And I think that's what makes me the most frustrated with this team is it's been 7-8 years and we're still rebuilding. Terrible.
It's not going to get any better. So
no, absolutely
obviously not. For you and all the Broncos fans out there, my thoughts and prayers go out to you. Sometimes you got to go through hell to get to heaven. Obviously, Broncos fans are going through hell right now. So,
last word on this, Jameson. I will say this. Jarrett Stidham, it's like 4,800 on DraftKings this week going against the Chargers defense at home. Broncos are looking for a spark. They may just get it. Jarrett Stidham, I would play him in GPPs. I think it's a Judy week too. So, false hope. People will have it, but you can also win a GPP that way. So,
right.
But
there we go.
We'll move on to the showdown that we're actually going to cover.
So, for as bad as this game sounds on paper, we've got the Jets at the Browns. I'm actually kind of intrigued. And I'm going to go on not a rant, but just a little bit of praise for Kevin Stefanski. He's on quarterback number 4, Joe Flacco, who last time we saw him, he looked like he was just about out of the league. And, I mean, Joe Flacco is just throwing the absolute hell out of the pigskin right now. Kevin Stefanski had every right to just kind of, play good defense and run the ball and kind of, give up, where we see a lot of these coaches kind of like the Jets on the other side have done. But, they get to Joe Flacco. He's completely flipped his play calling. They were the most run-heavy team in football, and now they're like one of the highest passing. I mean, they're down 4 offensive tackles, and Stefanski has just said F it, and he's got Joe Flacco out there just absolutely slinging it. And, I mean, Joe Flacco looks just as good as he did, that Ravens run in the playoffs. I mean, he's looking electric out there. So I just want to give some props to Kevin Stefanski. I'm not sure if he's going to win Coach of the Year, but I think he's definitely one of the top candidates for what he's done with all the injuries. And, I mean, the Browns, punters hurt, kickers hurt, offensive line's hurt. 3 quarterbacks are down, lost a running back, defense is hurt, and they're going to go to the playoffs, and I don't think teams are going to want to see this Browns team.
It's been something that just like epitomizes this season. What is going on in the NFL this year? I mean, it's just it's the best soap opera anywhere on TV. I mean, Joe Flacco's good. I was looking at his stats. I'm like, he wasn't good. He hasn't been good since basically the Ravens gave up on him because they had Lamar Jackson. When he went to Denver, and I was like, okay, here we go again. We just need a serviceable quarterback, and Joe Flacco couldn't be it. Obviously, he, injuries and this and that, but yeah, he's been playing like a guy who's, in his early 30s, not his late 30s. So it's been something to watch. Will it continue though, Jameson? Like we saw with Jake Browning last week. When's the other shoe going to fall?
Right. I think, be quite honest, I think it's going to keep going.
Okay.
Obviously, he's got tough matchup against the Jets, which, we'll get into. We'll crank the numbers here in a second. But I think the Jets offense is just going to be – I mean, Browns defense is good. I know they're banged up, but they still got Myles Garrett on the other side going up against the Jets offensive line that's just been absolute dog doo-doo.
Yeah.
And, it put so much stress on the offense. We saw a couple weeks ago against Miami to where it just, broke down, even though the Jets defense is good, that just can't keep up anymore. And, I'm excited. I know that the secondary for the Jets is good. It's like the most pass-happy team in the Browns going up against, the toughest secondary and pass defense in the Jets. But I do think that Joe Flacco will have a little bit of success Thursday night.
Well, I like this because this is one of the few times that we're not in agreement. And
there we go.
And I think maybe that's what we need for this showdown slate is a little bit of a, polar opposites on this. I think I agree with you. They've been playing really good, but I'm going to fade that recency bias. I think this is going to be a sloppy game. I think double defense, kickers are in play, running backs. Both the New York Jets and the Cleveland Browns have a really good pass defense. So I'm expecting this to be ugly. But, I mean, these showdowns have just gone complete opposite of what we think is going to be. So,
yeah. And I do want to point out this is revenge narrative for both Joe Flacco and Elijah Moore. And Robert Saleh came out today. Somebody asked about what happened to Elijah Moore, and he said that was a discussion for another day. It wasn't worth talking about. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of, not saying that NFL teams do this, but I wouldn't be surprised if Elijah Moore gets an extra look or two just, going up against the Jets. And, when Elijah Moore was wide receiver number 1 overall for whatever week 2 years ago, that was Joe Flacco throwing it to him. We know they have that connection. Obviously, it's not a great matchup, but I kind of want to go against the grain here because I think a lot of people are going to approach us, double defense, ugly type of game.
I will say I hope this game hits the over and ends up being high scoring because I am in the fantasy championship in my dynasty league. All thanks to Amari Cooper and Breece Hall last week, who combined for almost 100 points. And I pulled off the upset, man. And Amari Cooper, awesome. I think he's questionable in this game. I really hope he has a big game. But he has a tough matchup against Sauce Gardner, so I really like that Elijah Moore call. And in fact, let's kind of get into it, like our favorite captain plays here. Obviously, this game is projected as low scoring, so Vegas kind of agrees with me. However, they have Cleveland as the winners, the home favorites, with the 21.25 implied team total. And we got the New York Jets led by Trevor Siemian. This is two former Bronco journeyman quarterbacks, Trevor Siemian and Joe Flacco, squaring off. So it's proper for my beginning rant. But the New York Jets led by Trevor Siemian, 13.7 implied points here. Low scoring. That's what Vegas thinks it will be. But, Vegas has been wrong many times on these, as have I this year, leaning on Vegas. So we'll see what this ends up being in this one. Jameson, who are your favorite captains in this spot?
For me, I'm going to start it off. I think a guy I'm very curious to see his ownership, David Njoku, ever since Joe Flacco's came in, has just been killing it. He did it this past week, had a touchdown. I'm interested in, I know it's not the ideal matchup. I'm interested in the passing offense for Cleveland. Jerome Ford, like I said earlier, the Browns are down 4 offensive linemen. I don't even think they're going to try to establish it. They haven't. They've just kind of given up on that. Joe Flacco. Amari Cooper's going to have a lot of ownership just because of what he did last week, and rightfully so. That's kind of why I want to pivot a little bit to Elijah Moore and David Njoku. And then I think Browns defense, and then I'm going to go with Breece Hall would be my other on the Jets side. I really do not want to play too many Jets at captain. I think you can make a case for Garrett Wilson too, but I think Breece Hall would be my preferred play on the Jets side.
Breece, I love that. Actually, Breece Hall is going to be my favorite captain play on this slate, for a couple of reasons. We saw Breece Hall what he could be last week with this type of ceiling performance, and really that was what he was on the trajectory to be last year before he tore his ACL. And I just think it's kind of just been a bad year for lots of reasons. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles. They're banged up on the offensive line. The run game isn't what it's, what it was expected to be, obviously. And, there've been a lot of negative game scripts for a running back, but we saw it last week. And Cleveland, they don't have the run D that they did to start the season. They're actually pretty neutral run defense. They give up, I think I wouldn't say neutral, but they give up, 10 yards. They allow like 10 yards above average. So, or below average. So it's decent, but it's not elite at this point, I would say. And Breece Hall does a lot of its damage out of the backfield. So I just really like him in the spot because I think it's going to be hard for the teams to move the ball through the air via the receivers. So this one I think sets up as kind of just a lot of dump offs to Breece. And, we saw a ceiling last week. So I think it's going to be kind of a grounded out game. And I think he will be in the nuts lineup in this one.
Yeah. And I, going back to Joe Flacco real quick, he's played ever since against the Rams. He played the Rams, the Jaguars, the Bears, and then last week against the Texans. He's thrown the ball over 40 times each of those games. So, I mean, they have like totally reversed it. And that's kind of why I'm leaning. I really don't expect them to go to Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt and try to establish a run, because I think that's what a lot of people expected them to do when they signed Flacco and have him be a game manager, and he's like completely flipped the script, and it sets up nice. Like I think Myles Garrett kind of will destroy Simeon and not give the Jets. I mean, Nathaniel Hackett hasn't given them a shot anyways, but they get them in short yardage, stuff like that. That's what I'm kind of banking on with the Joe Flacco kind of stacks, honestly, and you can bring it back with Breece. And then, you can do defenses too.
I love it. Njoku is, I think he was probably next to Breece Hall. I think he's the best captain play on this slate, just because obviously you would expect Amari Cooper to get a lot of Sauce Gardner, and he's already banged up as is. And just coming off a huge game, we know how these things go in DFS. It's like whatever happened last week, 9 times out of 10, fading it is positive expected value. So he had, the performance of a lifetime last week on a short week going against the Jets. Pass defense, probably not going to happen again for Amari Cooper. So I like Njoku. I mean, he's got 9, 14, 8, 6, 9, and 15, 9 targets the past 6 or 7 games. So he just had a good connection with Flacco, obviously, in addition to Amari and Elijah Moore. So I love Njoku in this spot, given the matchup for sure. And then for me, it's really just Breece Hall and Njoku at captain. I think Amari is the guy that could beat a tough matchup. So like in 150, I'll certainly have some exposure to him. And then I will say, I think it's going to be low scoring. So I do think I'm going to get some defense. I'm going to get some kicker. Both of them on both sides. I'm going to get exposure. And that's it. I'm keeping my player pool pretty tight this week. I will say, if you're just looking at matchups, I think there is merit to playing a little bit of Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt. The problem is they're not running the ball a whole lot, and it's in a timeshare. So they're basically getting about 10, 11 carries each a game. So it just really kind of caps their ceiling.
Yeah, I think they're flex plays. Obviously they can get it to the end zone, and we've seen a little bit of Kareem Hunt in the end zone. Just real quick, going back to Njoku, the last 3 games, 27 points, 26 points, and 16. So, I mean, that ceiling there for the captain is, if you're going to be playing Showdown tomorrow, I think you need to have a decent amount of exposure to David Njoku.
Agreed.
So, but I think honestly that really covers the captains. I do want to make a case for Jets defense with the Browns throwing it as much as they do. Joe Flacco at one time was known as the pick six machine. If they catch a pick six, maybe 2 of them, kind of break the slate a little bit. I do want to throw that out there. Just a scenario that can happen.
I totally agree with that. And specifically like in the flex, I love it. Like I said, I'll have a little bit in the captain, plan 150, but I'm with you because again, I have a hard time believing this is going to continue and Joe Flacco's just going to go on this amazing run and he's going to ride off into the sunset, hosting the Lombardi. They're going to beat the Ravens in the playoffs and the AFC Championship and go on and win the Super Bowl. Like at some point, the other shoe's gonna fall. And why not this game? Why not this game? It's a tough matchup, as far as the passing game goes. So I like that.
I feel like I'm a believer. I tweeted a couple weeks ago, if this team faced the Chiefs in the first round of the playoffs, I think that'd be very intriguing. And it's kind of held up its end of the bargain, especially with the Chiefs offense not looking as good as it is going up against Myles Garrett. Yeah. And then, Joe Flacco. I think that'd be a chance of an actual upset there. I know that sounds ugly, but maybe that's just me drinking a little bit too much of the Kool-Aid.
I'm with you. I think the Chiefs, eat a little crow. I think the loss of Eric Bieniemy has been heavy this year because they're pretty much the same team. This is like the same, more or less the same roster that they rolled out last year, and they're just terrible on offense this year. And the defense is elite, so like they should theoretically be a better team, and they're not. So I really think they've missed Eric Bieniemy this year, and I think it's going to be a very sad January for Chiefs fans.
Yeah, I don't see them going very far, but that's just me personally. But we'll get into. We covered a lot of them, but we'll get into some of the flex plays here.
Let's do it,
dude. There is some kicker stuff going on. I believe it's Greg Zuerlein. I think he's going to play, but just keep an eye on that because they brought in like a practice kicker. I don't know exactly what's going on, but keep an eye out for that. Tyler Conklin gets a little bit of the nod there for the Jets as far as tight end goes. Cedric Tillman as salary relief, and then Randall Cobb on the other side kind of gets just every once in a while. Let's see.
Absolutely. For flex for me, a lot of the same guys are in play. Amari Cooper is more in play at the flex position just because, over the past month of the season, he's got over 40 targets. So just sheer volume on a single, slate, like this being a showdown. If Amari Cooper plays, we know he's going to get the volume. Obviously, he is in play. He can overcome a tough matchup for sure. We've seen it before with Amari Cooper. Like I said, Breece Hall, one of my favorite plays, specifically in the flex, if you're not playing him a captain. Garrett Wilson, we can't forget about Garrett Wilson. He has been averaging an absurd amount of targets this year. I mean, he's actually second in the league, or is tied actually with CeeDee Lamb, 149 targets on the season. So, and yeah, even over the past month of the season with different quarterbacks, he's still top 3 in targets. So Garrett Wilson is a guy that can beat any matchup. And Joe Flacco, I think Joe Flacco is a guy that I would have in the flex. I won't have any of him in the captain, but a little bit of him in the flex. Now, we talked about David Njoku. I probably have 100% of David Njoku on this slate. If I don't have him in the captain spot, it's going to be in the flex. Just the amount of volume that he's been getting and production has just been unreal. Over 4 touchdowns over the past 3 weeks, and I mean, you just need it, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's a gotta have it, specifically from a tight end.
So, just real quick, another person I mixed up. Should have said Alan Lazard, not Randall Cobb when I was talking about the flex.
Mm-hmm.
He gets a little bit of love there. Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford, we talked about them already, and then I think that is about it. Trevor Siemian, if you want to get a little off the grid, if you think that he can do anything at all, but other than that, that's really, I think, about it as far as flex plays. There's really not too many of them. It's more dart throws.
Yeah, Trevor Siemian would definitely be large field GPP, but oh my God, how many times have we been like, no, Bailey Zappe's not going to do anything in this spot, and then he throws 3 touchdowns. And as a Broncos fan, I've seen it with Siemian. Siemian has had some 3 touchdown games. It was a long time ago, but I mean, never say never. Like with these showdown slates, just throw out a couple lineups of what you don't think is going to happen. Just throw out a couple lineups with that happening. Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt, in the flex. All it takes is one of them to break 1 touchdown. It is actually a really good matchup, but it's a timeshare, so it sucks. But I think, both of these guys being in a timeshare, they're not going to get a lot of ownership. So, I would have split exposures between both Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt. And, I really like your Elijah Moore call because it's a tough matchup for Amari Cooper, revenge game narrative. I really like Elijah Moore in this spot. So just really try to stick it to the Jets.
So that's honestly really about it as far as flex goes. And then as far as, your both defenses, obviously, but as far as kind of the dart throws, Xavier Gipson,
yes,
Cedric Tillman, Brownlee has gotten a little bit of work. And then, Dalvin Cook hasn't really done much. He's kind of been thrown out as far as the last couple. 0 to 1.8. And then the other guy I just want to bring up real quick is Harrison Bryant on the Brown side.
Yeah, man. Love it. In fact, I'm just going to rattle off some names over Domination Station at DFS Army, some of the fantasy points per dollar plays. Normally, if they're like top 3, top 4, don't ignore them, specifically on these showdown slates, because you will get these guys like 80% plus of the winning lineups have like these $4,000 or less players in them. So like the Jets D, pop in 2.5 fantasy points per dollar. So 2.5x their salary fantasy points per dollar. That is what you are seeing right now. Jeremy Rucker, Marquise Goodwin, Jordan Akins. Those are all the guys above 2. One of these guys is going to have a good game. That's just always how it goes. So make sure to get some of these guys in your lineups. And by the way, ownership projections will be dropping tomorrow. So if you want to really leverage the field, you got to be aware of what's going on with ownership. So, I'm not even going to throw out my promo code. I'm not going to throw out the FantasyFling promo code. What I'm going to do right now is because my promo code is only 10%. So for the people, for the culture, I'm giving it to you. 24% off right now. Any membership, use promo code 2024 over at dfsarmy.com. Check it out if you want access to all the projections, ownership projections, fantasy points per dollar. That's what you need. 2024 at checkout.
Some great tools over there to kind of help your game, and especially if you were somebody who is kind of, I would say, newer to Showdown. If you kind of just want to see how an optimizer, like the projections and all that stuff, I don't think it gives you an edge, but it just kind of gives you a little bit different perspective of some of the stuff that you're not going to see while hand building.
100%. we were having like discussion in Discord the other day about it. And I was like, sometimes I will just run, like, cause I'm going to play normally about like 200 lineups. So there's like probably 5 or 6 lineups that I will run just the optimizer with like minimal settings. And I'll just throw those like in, a couple 1,000-person tournaments and like a couple large field GPPs, because a couple times a year, the optimizer is going to be so accurate that it's going to take down a tournament, which is like minimal tweaks. So it really, really helps seeing what the projections are. And the projection system is great just from a fantasy points projection, but also ownership. It really helps.
Absolutely. I think that just about covers it on this game. Like I said, for me personally, I'm leaning pretty Joe Flacco heavy, so I'm leaning on the Browns passing game. I know you are slowing it down a little bit, think it's kind of be more low scoring, but that's good. It's good to go against the grain against each other every now and then. Yeah,
we gotta contrast, play devil's advocate, see different ways the game could go, and it'd probably be good for one of us if we're going opposites, right?
Right. So kind of hopefully one of us take a showdown to end the season. It's been a good one here for us.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to wrap it up. This is the last showdown episode that Jameson and I will be doing this season. We might see if Jameson's available. We could do a couple playoff slates. We got a lot of content coming your way. That's one thing in the new year, and I kind of started this past month or two of the season, is I really want to do a lot more content on my own channel. I've been doing daily draft content this year. I want to focus more on like the best ball and the playoff best ball, but obviously in the off season best ball and weekly winners. Really want to like hit that content really hard this off season, because that's a new contest over on Underdog, and I just love it. So it's best ball meets DFS, and want to cover a lot of that. So stay tuned to the channel, because I know that season's almost wrapping up, but we got a lot more content coming your way. So thank you for joining us, and stay tuned.
Absolutely. Good luck if you are in the championship this week. Good luck to you if you have any last of the best ball lineups that have lasted and are in the final contest. Good luck to you. Hope you take them down. And yes. Probably see you for the playoffs. And then, like you said, we got best ball stuff coming out this summer. So I'll be around, both of us doing all that good stuff. So we're here to help 24/7, 365.
Yeah, Jameson will be back for that for sure. I know he likes doing that type of content, so we're going to have him on the channel in addition to these showdown slates and these small slates. But, I got a couple of fantasy championships. I only did 4 leagues. As I've really got crazy into DFS, I've cut down my season-long leagues and, Dynasty and all that. 4 leagues, made the playoffs in 3 of them, in the championship in 2. So I'm hoping I can go for 2 for 2. We'll see.
There we go. I'm in a couple championships myself. I had a 2-7 team, rattle off 5 wins to get into the postseason at 7-7, and then I won this past week by half a point. So now I'm heading to the championship, and I'm basically like one of the last people with a healthy quarterback. So hoping to take that one down.
That's awesome, man. Got to get hot at the right time, just like NFL teams get hot, stay hot, win a championship. So best of luck.
But that should do it for us. Like I said, good luck to you guys this weekend, and you guys all have a good one.
Take care, everyone. Best of luck. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to smash that like button and subscribe. You don't want to miss what's coming next. We really appreciate it. And we'll catch you in the next episode right here on the Fantasy Fling DFS